We need fresh perspectives for our next launch, she explained during my termination. Someone who understands current market trends. My name is Mason, 41 years old, and until that Thursday morning, I was the lead product designer at Arcform Outdoor Gear in Minneapolis, a role I had held for over 7 years. Elena, our newly appointed creative director, had called me into her office. Heather from HR was already seated beside her, expression tight, hands folded. I'd felt it coming. The shift had been gradual but clear ever since Elena stepped in, bringing with her a polished, editorial style more suited for runway catalogs than rugged terrain. Her vision leaned heavily on aesthetic over application, sleek silhouettes, trendy color palettes, glossy mock-ups for magazines. It clashed entirely with the ethos I'd spent years building. At Arcform, we had been about function, utility, gear made not just to look good, but to endure the unforgiving elements. Everything I designed, tested, field-reviewed, refined, was now labeled not innovative enough. Elena slid the termination papers across the desk with her manicured hand, nails gleaming like they'd never known the grit under a carabiner clip or the cold bite of alpine wind. I kept my face still. No reaction, no argument, just quiet acceptance. 7 years. I'd helped turn Arcform from an underdog into a respected name among serious outdoor professionals. The Pathfinder series backpacks? Mine. Built to distribute weight in a way that made 30 pounds feel like 15. The modular jacket system? Also mine. It won 2 international design awards for its adaptive thermal layering. And yet here I was, dismissed with a few buzzwords and a formality. I thanked her for the feedback, gathered my sketchbooks, unplugged my tablet, and walked out without looking back. What Elena didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this for months. On evenings and weekends, I'd been quietly working on designs Arcform had rejected, concepts they deemed too niche, too ahead of our customer base. But I believed in them. I knew their worth. As I drove home, half stunned and half relieved, my phone buzzed. A message from Brian in product development. This place just made the biggest mistake of its corporate life. I smiled, grateful for the solidarity. My journey into design didn't begin in a glossy showroom. It started at my grandfather's old workshop in Duluth, where he built wooden canoes by hand. He taught me early, function before flair. Every curve had purpose. Every joint had integrity. It wasn't art for art's sake. It was survival. That lesson stuck with me through design school, internships, my first job. It was the philosophy I carried into Arcform when I joined. Back then, the company was limping. Great ideas, poor execution. I was brought on to change that. The CEO at the time, James, gave me free rein. Make stuff that works first. Looks good second. Our people will know the difference, he'd said. And they did. Within 3 years, sales had doubled. Word spread among hikers, climbers, and backcountry guides. Arcform gear wasn't flashy, it just worked better. But nothing lasts forever. James eventually retired. In came Vivian, the new CEO, who brought in Elena from the fashion world. Overnight, everything shifted. Meetings became style critiques instead of spec reviews. My projects were reassigned. My experience ignored. The new designers they favored had impressive digital portfolios and trendy resumes, but not a single day of trail experience between them. 3 months ago, I submitted our next-generation weatherproof system, breathable, ultralight, and storm-rated. Elena dismissed it as uninspired. A week later, she pitched eerily similar designs to the executive team, this time attributed to Justin, her newest hire with a background in luxury athleisure. That night, I picked up the phone and called Thomas, an old friend and former colleague who now worked at Ridgeline Supply, Arcform's fiercest competitor. "How's your contract situation looking these days?" he asked after I explained what had happened. Non compete, he replied. James didn't believe in them. Said if someone leaves, they should be free to build whatever they want. Thomas laughed. That's rare. And lucky. I nodded to myself. Yeah, it was. But it also meant my next move could be on my terms. Unethical. Thomas went quiet for a long moment. Interesting. Very interesting. The termination package had been generous enough. 3-month salary, extended benefits, and a glowing reference letter tucked into the envelope like a parting gift. 7 years of service, reduced to a few formal lines and a signature. I signed the papers without protest, thanked Heather from HR with a nod, and walked out of Arcform's offices for the last time. The drive home was quiet. No calls, no music, just the steady sound of rain on the windshield and my thoughts running wild. That afternoon, my apartment felt different. Smaller somehow, yet paradoxically more open. It was like something had shifted, space had cleared. I pulled out my drafting table and spread across it every sketch Arcform had rejected over the past year. 12 full design collections. Every concept carefully rendered. Every stitch and seam imagined for real-world use. Not the kind of designs meant to impress on slideshows. These were made for backcountry trails, alpine summits, and wet canyon descents. I ran my hands over the paper, the graphite smudges, the handwritten notes. These weren't just drawings. They were solutions. I realized then, I'd been designing for a company that no longer existed. The Arcform I had joined was gone. The one that cared about how gear performed, not how it looked in a campaign spread. They were chasing market trends now, not mountain ridge lines. Around 7 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Mason Rourke? A sharp voice asked. Yes. This is Melissa Hargrove, creative director at Ridgeline Supply. Thomas said you might be available. There was no small talk. No warm-up. Just direct, business-like clarity. I like her already. Says you were the real force behind Arcform's golden years, she continued. You got anything worth looking at? I glanced down at the sketches still spread across the table. Concepts that had been shelved. Ideas dismissed by Elena as too niche or off-brand. I leaned forward, suddenly alert. I might have a few. Send them over tonight, she said. If they're good, we'll talk. After we hung up, I got to work. I didn't redesign anything. I didn't need to. I simply cleaned up the presentations, added better annotations, emphasized performance data. By midnight, I'd packaged 6 refined concepts and sent them with short notes describing the functional logic behind each piece. Then I shut the laptop, and for the first time in months, slept deeply. The next morning, I woke to Melissa's reply. It was short, direct. Her office. 10 a.m. bring contract terms. I showered, pulled on my field jacket and boots, clothes that had seen snow, mud, and rain, and drove to Ridgeline's headquarters on the other side of town. No sleek glass lobby here. The reception desk was covered in fabric swatches and topographic maps. The receptionist walked me straight through to Melissa's office, a space that looked like someone actually worked there. Gear prototypes, design cuttings, and test reports pinned everywhere. She gestured toward a corkboard where my 6 designs had already been printed and pinned. These solve problems we've been chasing for 2 seasons, she said, tapping her finger on the centerpiece. A modular weatherproof gear system that could adapt in real time to changing temperatures and climates without sacrificing movement. She turned to me. How soon can you start? I'm available now. Good, she said. Because we're moving fast. Very fast. For the first time in over a year, I smiled. A real one. A week in my new role, my phone buzzed. Peter, Arcform's production manager. We'd worked side by side for years, debugging manufacturing issues, finding the balance between cutting-edge design and feasible production. Mason, he said, his voice low, this is off the record, but things are bad. How bad? Justin's designs, they look nice in presentations, but they're impossible to build. Materials don't behave the way he expects. The prototype backpacks are coming in 2 pounds heavier than spec. Stitching failures, breakpoints, all wrong. Manufacturing's a mess. I didn't gloat. I didn't have to. I just listened. Elena's telling the execs you left without documenting any of your production processes, Peter added. Says you sabotaged the transition. I sat up straighter. That's a lie. I know it is. But Vivian, she's asking questions. Elena's got her convinced there was negligence. My stomach turned. This wasn't just about creative differences anymore. This was character assassination. Against my better judgment, I opened my email, found Vivian's contact, and started typing. Requesting a meeting to clear the air, I kept my message to Vivian professional but firm. She agreed to coffee the next morning. We met at a busy cafe downtown, neutral ground, public loud enough to discourage raised voices. She arrived 10 minutes late, checking her watch even before she sat down. "I'll be direct," I said as she adjusted her blazer. "I've heard Elena is suggesting I deliberately left the team without proper documentation. That's not true. Every file is on the share drive, fully updated. I trained Justin myself before I left, walked him through everything step by step." Vivian gave a small nod, her expression unreadable. "She mentioned you might get defensive." "I'm not being defensive," I said evenly. "I just don't appreciate being painted as someone who sabotaged the very team I helped build." She leaned back, folding her arms. "Look, Mason, the outdoor industry is small. Reputation matters. I'd hate for this unpleasantness to follow you." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. "Don't push back, or we'll make sure you regret it." I smiled slightly. "I appreciate your concern. I'd hate for Arcform to waste production dollars on designs that look good on paper but fall apart in the real world." Her eyes narrowed. "We'll manage our challenges internally. I trust you'll be discreet." She stood and left before I could reply. I watched her walk out, her heels clicking against the tile like punctuation marks. As soon as she disappeared, my phone buzzed. "Melissa, contract's ready. We want to move fast on your weatherproof collection." I stared at the message for a second, then back at the cafe door. Vivian had no idea what was coming. 3 days later, I received a certified letter from Arcform's legal department. The language was careful, vague, and unsettling. They were reviewing aspects of my employment history in light of potential confidentiality concerns. No accusations, just enough implication to make it clear they wanted me to back down. I brought the letter straight to Melissa. She read it without flinching and passed it to Ridgeline's legal counsel. After an hour of reviewing my case, their verdict was simple. "This is posturing. Nothing more," their lead attorney said. "You didn't have a non-compete. You're designing original work, and we have timestamps on your submissions. Let's respond." That evening, they sent a concise but devastating reply. "We have extensive documentation of Mr. Rourke's design submissions while at your company, including dated records of when those designs were reviewed and declined. Should you wish to pursue this matter in court, we would be more than happy to compare your current development timeline with those materials." 2 days passed. Silence. Then Peter called. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice low and tense. "What?" Elena had a closed-door meeting with legal. She came out pale, like ghost pale. I said nothing. There was no need. "Just watch your back," he added. "She's not done." 2 days later, I met Thomas for lunch at a burger joint halfway between our offices. It was off the radar, someplace neither of our exec teams would think to go. "You need to see this," he said once we ordered, sliding his tablet across the table. It was Arcform's internal marketing brief for their upcoming fall collection. Somehow, Thomas had gotten his hands on it. As I scrolled, I felt my stomach drop. The designs were mine, down to the last detail. The weatherproof layering system, the reconfigurable cargo vest, the snow gaiters with integrated heel lock, all relabeled under a new name, the Elevation Series. Lead designer? Justin. "They're planning to launch in September," Thomas said, voice quiet. "Full campaign. Materials are already being sourced." I sat back, blinking. This wasn't just about aesthetics or direction. Elena had rejected the designs not because they were unworkable, but because she planned to steal them. She wanted the work without the man behind it. Thomas leaned in. "That's not even the worst part. Take a look at this next file." He opened another tab on the tablet and turned it toward me. The document Thomas showed me confirmed it. Ridgeline was fast-tracking my entire collection. Melissa had personally convinced the CEO to move up production. If all went according to plan, my designs would be hitting the shelves by August, a full month before Arcform's scheduled launch. "With full credit to you as the designer," Thomas added, locking eyes with me across the table. "But we need a decision now. Once we pull the trigger, there's no reversing the process." I didn't flinch. "Let's do it." That evening, I called Melissa and gave her my full commitment to the accelerated schedule. The updated contract came with more than a timeline. It included something Arcform had never once offered me: royalties on every unit sold and final say on every production detail. "We're branding it the Summit Series," Melissa explained. And we want her name on it, featured prominently. It's your vision, Mason. It should feel like yours. 2 days later, I was back at Ridgeline headquarters signing the contract and submitting my complete design package. Every last file, from technical blueprints to production flowcharts. No vague sketches. No incomplete mock-ups. Just fully realized, field-tested design work. When I got home that night, I opened my inbox and found something I hadn't expected, a message from Elena. Mason, I hope you're doing well. As we finalize our seasonal line, I realize there may still be opportunities to collaborate. Would you be open to consulting? Your insights have always added value. No apology. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just a vague offer and a last-minute scramble to retain control. I deleted it without a second thought. The next week, Ridgeline invited me to tour their manufacturing facility. I walked through every line, every workstation, speaking with engineers and technicians. Most of them had never worked on a modular system like mine, interdependent components designed to work solo but optimized when used together. Diane, the lead engineer, pulled me aside afterward. These designs are brilliant, she said, but they're also the most complex thing we've ever tried to build. If we're going to hit that August deadline, I need you here daily. Whatever it takes, I told her without hesitation. For the next month, Ridgeline became my second home. I worked 16-hour shifts. Twice, I crashed on a cot in a corner office, too exhausted to drive home. But I was in it with the team, testing zippers under pressurized conditions, inspecting stitch counts, recalibrating laser cuts on waterproof seams. The crew respected that. I wasn't handing down specs from a pedestal. I was shoulder to shoulder with them, solving problems in real time. Halfway through production, I got another email. This time from Vivian. Mason, for your own professional interests, I suggest we discuss your current activities. Let's keep things constructive. The tone was familiar, coded in diplomacy, but veiled in threat. I didn't bother replying. I forwarded it to Ridgeline's legal team and went back to the floor. We were building something real. I had no time for old games. Ridgeline's pace was relentless, but so was our momentum. Within 3 weeks, we had fully functional prototypes. I spent entire days with Diane and her team, tweaking, testing, adjusting. Every detail mattered. This wasn't just gear. This was performance under pressure. The Summit series consisted of 5 integrated pieces: a modular backpack with adaptive compartments, a layered outerwear system with detachable insulation, weatherproof boots with ergonomic flexibility, multi-function camp gear, and technical accessories built for alpine conditions. Each piece stood alone, but together they formed a seamless ecosystem. Exactly what I've been fighting for at Arcform. Melissa brought me into the marketing meetings too, something Elena never once allowed. And when I spoke, the team listened. These aren't fashion pieces, I told them, gesturing to the prototypes on the display table. They're gear, lifelines, built for climbers, trekkers, search and rescue crews, people who don't care about runway aesthetics. They care about survival, utility, and performance under extreme conditions. As July came to a close, word began to spread. Quiet first, but unmistakable. Retail buyers who'd previewed our line started calling it category-defining. Social influencers in the outdoor space were asking about launch dates. Gear blogs picked up the buzz from early product leaks. The feedback was strong, authentic, coming from people who used the equipment, not just photographed it. And that was exactly the difference. Outdoor forums buzzed with speculation about Ridgeline's bold new direction. The chatter wasn't just about the gear. It was about the sudden shift in tone, the unmistakable edge of authenticity. Then came the call for Peter at Arcform. Mason, did you? He stopped himself, lowering his voice. Never mind. I shouldn't be asking. What's happening over there? I asked, though I already had a pretty good guess. Vivian saw Ridgeline's preview catalog. Peter said quietly. The Summit series, honestly, Mason, it's remarkable. Elena's in full panic mode. She's saying Ridgeline stole concept from us. I stayed quiet, letting the weight of that land where it needed to. The thing is, Peter continued, we both know they didn't steal a thing. These aren't knockoffs. These are your originals, right? The ones Elena turned down. I can't comment on that, I replied, carefully, deliberately. You don't have to, he said. Your name's right there in the catalog. Designed by Mason Rourke, former lead product designer at Arcform. It's bold, and honestly, it's brilliant. The next day, Vivian herself called. I let go to voicemail. Her tone was clipped, formal. Mason, this is highly unprofessional. We need to discuss this situation immediately. Instead, I headed to Ridgeline's headquarters for our final launch meeting. The office was buzzing. Packaging teams confirming shipments, marketing running through last-minute placements, Melissa fielding calls from distributors already requesting early access. The Summit Series would hit specialty retailers across the country in just 2 weeks, 4 full weeks ahead of Arcform's planned launch of the suspiciously similar Elevation line. The night before our launch, I couldn't sleep. 7 years at Arcform, hundreds of sketches, dozens of prototypes, all of it culminating in a moment I hadn't anticipated, but maybe had always been building toward. At 5 a.m., restless, I drove out to the trail just beyond the city, the same ridge where I'd field-tested the earliest iterations of my modular gear. The morning was damp and cool. Perfect conditions. I pulled on the jacket from the Summit Series and felt the design working with me, not against me. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. It's live. Website just launched. Orders already coming in. I stood on the ridge, watching the sun rise, feeling a quiet mix of vindication and something closer to grief. I hadn't wanted it to end like this with Arcform. I'd given them everything, my designs, my time, my trust. But they had chosen a different path, one that valued aesthetic polish over true field-tested utility. Now the market would decide. By the time I got back to my car, I had 17 missed calls. Journalists, outdoor bloggers, gear reviewers, all wanted to know the story behind Ridgeline's meteoric rise. One voicemail stood out. Elena. Her voice was brittle. You've made a serious mistake. I finally called her back. No, I said when she answered. You did. The Summit Series launched on August 12th. By noon, Ridgeline's website had crashed, twice from sheer traffic. Customer service was overwhelmed. Retailers were calling nonstop, trying to double and triple their initial orders. I watched it all unfold from Melissa's office. Industry reviews poured in. Revolutionary. A new standard in outdoor design. Solves problems no one else thought to address. My name was in every single article. 3 days after launch, Outside Magazine ran a feature that set the industry ablaze, separated at birth. The curious case of 2 identical product lines. It didn't outright accuse Arcform of copying, but the implication was unmistakable. The article noted that I had designed both lines, Summit and Elevation, and questioned how Arcform could claim ownership of concepts their own leadership had previously rejected. The forums exploded. Reddit threads dissected the similarities down to stitch counts. Industry insiders posted timelines, emails, even old design files. It wasn't just speculation anymore. It was exposure, and it was only the beginning. People from trade shows connected the dots almost instantly. Social media lit up with side-by-side comparisons, tagging both Ridgeline and Arcform in threads that asked sharp, uncomfortable questions about design theft and intellectual property. Then came the inevitable call from Vivian. This time, I picked up. This is completely unacceptable, she snapped before even saying hello. You've deliberately undermined our company. I designed products for a brand that brought me on to do exactly that. I replied evenly. Products you're now selling under someone else's name. We should probably talk about that, I said. I have emails from Elena rejecting those exact designs 6 months ago. What do you think a court would make of the fact that they're now being produced with someone else's name on them? The silence on the other end dragged on just long enough to make the point. You should have valued what you had, I said quietly. Good luck with your launch. The following week, Arcform issued a press release stating that the Elevation series would be postponed for additional refinement. Industry analysts saw, through the PR speak, immediately, it was a strategic retreat, plain and simple. By October, Ridgeline Summit Series had broken every previous Q1 sales record in company history. My royalty checks had already surpassed what I used to make in a year at Arcform. Melissa promoted me to design director with full creative control over our next 3 seasonal lines and a team of 6 incredibly capable designers under me. Thomas moved over from materials to join my department as our technical advisor. Eventually, Arcform did release a new line, a visibly reworked version that looked nothing like what I'd created. The reception was underwhelming. Reviews were polite. Their stock slipped another 8% that quarter. That winter, I ran into Elena at an industry conference in Denver. She was alone at the hotel bar, nursing what looked like her second or third drink. I was passing by when she looked up. "Congratulations on your success," she said. Her voice was flat. "No worms, no esmail." I nodded politely but kept moving. "You could have stayed, Mason. You could have fought for your work," she added behind me. I paused for a beat, then turned slightly. "Some places don't deserve the fight." She flinched, but recovered fast. "Vivian's stepping down next month," she said. "The board asked me to take over, at least temporarily." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Good luck," I said and meant it. Not for her, but for the industry. It needed strong players. It needed integrity. 6 months later, I received a small, unmarked package. Inside were my original sketchbooks from my years at Arcform, wrapped in brown paper with a handwritten note from Peter. "These belong to you. Elena's gone. Thought you should know." I flipped open one of the books. Page after page of forgotten concepts. One in particular caught my eye, a modular tent system designed for high-altitude expeditions. I'd sketched it almost 3 years earlier. Never showed it to Elena. Never got the chance. That night, I called Melissa. "I have an idea for our winter line," I told her. The following spring, Ridgeline stock had doubled. Arcform quietly announced another restructuring, this time under new leadership. I didn't pay much attention to the news. I was too busy designing what came next. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about those 7 years at Arcform. Not with resentment, but with clarity. That chapter taught me something valuable. Not the lesson they meant to teach, but a better one. In this industry, and in life, your work speaks loudest when someone gives it room to breathe. Elena tried to bury mine. In doing so, she only made it louder. The best revenge wasn't proving her wrong. It was finally finding a place that recognized what I'd known all along. Good design isn't about trends. It's about solving real problems for real people. And that's what lasts.